I'm sitting down because I know who here never heard of cancer? Who here has somebody in their family with cancer? Who here has cancer? So, according to the listserv that I find very helpful, the AMA listserv on that's called Cancer Survivor Network, anybody above the ground is a cancer survivor. So I'm a cancer survivor because I'm still alive, but I definitely have very serious cancer. And I guess God has been very good to me because my outside doesn't look as bad as my inside looks. And the reason I'm talking about this topic is I cannot tell you, I've been in weddings, bar mitzvahs recently and a while ago. I was diagnosed, this is my first cancer I had was in I guess when I was 50, and now I'm 70, Baruch Hashem, every minute. And it was thank you Hashem. It was thyroid cancer. And I thought I was finished with it, and that was it. I finished, I had surgery, blah, 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 blah. And that was the end of that. But when I was 64 and a half, in 2010, I was diagnosed having uterine cancer. And by the time they found it, which is only I had no symptoms. By the time I had this tummy ache, and I went in, we had gone to America for a trip in the summer, and I said to my husband, I need a gastroenterologist. And he goes, just because you work in a hospital, I've been a charge aesthetic like 30 years, but just because you work in a hospital doesn't, you first go to the Rofei Mishpacha, you first go to the first doctor, and then I said, no, I need a gastroenterologist, I need now. And I was in a place in Long Island, and I was not going into the city, and nobody was going to see me off the street who I didn't know. So I called one of the guys who had spent his yeshiva years running away from yeshiva in my house, and who now happens to be at Sloan Kettering. And I called him, and he called, and I said, listen, I need a gastro person, and I need it quickly. So he sent me to somebody, and I said, I need you to say to that person, I know her, and for the most part, she's not a drug addict, and anything else. So he did, and I went to him, and it was a Thursday. And the guy said, you have to have blood tests, and you have to have a CT immediately. Run, don't walk, have a CT. Friday, I got the appointment for a CT. I'm also like, you're going to meet me, but I'm not shy. I never was shy, cancer, schmancer, nothing. And so I got the CT, and it was in America where, of course, HIPAA there means, cannot give out information, not to the patient, not to this one, not to that one. I always, when I speak in America, I say in Israel, HIPAA is just a nickname we have for hippopotamus. There's no relationship between secrecy and privacy and anything. You could sign anything you want, and the Makolet man knows. I don't know. And so I don't really care. Because if anybody wants to find out, they'll find out. And if they don't want to find out, they won't find out. And if I want to tell them, I'll tell them. And if I don't want to tell them, I won't tell them. But anyway, so Friday, I had the CT, and then I said, I would like to get some of the results. Well, we can't do that. So they said, just put down your doctor's numbers, da-da-da. So I put down my fax number. Like, they're going to know which fax number? So, of course, they didn't know, and I got the fax results. Whereupon it was Friday afternoon, I called my nephew, who's a radiologist in Maryland, and I said, I'm going to now fax you this. And then he said, oh my God, Aunt Judy, that's me, because he's my nephew. Oh my God, Aunt Judy, you have ovarian cancer. I said, oh shit, excuse the French. I just ordered a new IBM laptop. And he said that's why we love you, because nobody else would say that. And I said, to tell you the truth, there's no other doctor I could call Erev Shabbos with this information who would tell me, oh, Aunt Judy, I love you. So thank you for that. And my husband was on a bike ride, and I figured, all right, he can hear that the Henny Penny's world fell in when he gets back from the bike ride. So, you know, so it'll wait another half an hour. In the meantime, I was doing my nails. There was a lot of stuff going on. I had, I think, 7 or 8 grandchildren sleeping over, et cetera, et cetera. And then fit hit the shan, as they say, and life started. And I spoke to a friend of mine, and this was Friday. By Monday, I had an appointment at a gyno-onc, you know, a gynecological oncologist who's a surgeon, and by Monday he saw me, by the next week I was operated on. And that's the story. And then I went to, we kept our insurance, even though we're here many, many years, we kept our insurance in America. Every year my husband would say, do you know how much money we're paying on this extra insurance? And we have Mugbar, and I also have from the hospital. And no. The insurance is, you know, if I need it, you have it. If you don't need it, it just is very expensive. And so this is expensive. Okay. But so everything was covered, which was very lucky. And then I went to Sloan Kettering this was Mount Sinai, and I went to Sloan Kettering to see what the chemo was like there. I think mice have larger rooms in the laboratories of a lot of hospitals. You have to have a tremendous amount of mazel, which cancer you get, because depending on who is the largest donor, I have very cynical sense of humor, sorry. Depending who is the largest donor is how much room they give to the patients to do chemo, to do everything. So nobody yet, if you know somebody who's very wealthy who has endometrial cancer and needs chemo, tell them go to Sloan Kettering, because they really need space for the patients. So and this is after my husband had worked out the insurance and the whole thing in a taxi on the way back, or car on the way back from Sloan Kettering. I said, we're going back to Israel tonight. He said, but I just did all the insurance and we could do it. I said, there's no way. The only thing I have going for me with this diagnosis is my nefesh. And that place will kill my nefesh. I don't have to translate that. That's my soul. It will kill my soul. And I cannot go there. And of course, the first thing the doctor did, had a department, blah, blah, blah. You should be so lucky you have an appointment, blah, blah, blah. And he's like slipping this paper under my hand. And the paper is to sign up for whatever, because stage 4B. There's no stage 5 above the ground, and C also is not too much above the ground. So, and that's what I had. So of course, I'm a guinea pig. Oh goody, we haven't had one of those in about 20 minutes. Let's see what we could give her. And so I said, no, I'm not signing it, because what happens in an experiment so yes, you can't afford the medication yourself, but what happens if you're on the wrong arm of the experiment? I said to him. So can I jump ship and then get the medicine privately? He said, no, you can't do that. You can't spoil my experiment. You can't do this, and you can't do it for my name, and you can't. I said, what about for my life? The other group is going to be living, and my group is going to be dying. I'm leaving that group. No, and you can't do it, and I won't allow it, and da-da-da. And that was part of the reason that I said to my husband, we're getting on a plane going to Israel, where protexia is king. And I don't care who you need to know, but you end up knowing. It could be the Makolit man again, because he's the brother-in-law of the guy who's the chief of the department. It's nothing to worry about. It's just a matter of finding it out. This is before Shabak and before KGB and before CIA. You just need to find out who's who. Anyway, and without Google, that's just fine. So that was the beginning of my story. And the middle of my story, they gave me, not only there, but here also, if the chemo doesn't work, and also the literature. And I'm here to say, don't believe the literature. Every study, everything you read about on the internet is about 5 years old. Because until they get the research accepted, published, whatever, the research may be 10 years old, but the writing and returning, and I've written articles for journals. I know how long it takes. for the most part, I write very few articles for journals because I could see maybe 60 kids or 60 patients or one journal article. So I'm in a clinical position. I have my VETEC, I have my seniority. I'm not in a university, which is publish or perish, and let the patient perish, so you write another article. No, not for me. Anyway, so that's what I did. And so they said to me, the doctors said, 4 to 6 months, if, that means on top of the earth, if the chemo doesn't work. And the chemo didn't work. I had 4 rounds of chemo, 5 rounds of radiation. 5 rounds of radiation means 28 times per round. So until they said to me, you know, shalom v'lo letraot, because we can't give you any more radiation in the spots that you needed because it's been over-radiated and burnt, and we're going to harm more parts of you than we are going to cure. You don't, this is a don't do what I say, and don't do what I do, because everybody's got to find their own comfort level. Basically, my comfort level has always been, I never listened to a teacher. They always got mad at me. I never behaved, and why should that change now? So I stopped chemo 3 years ago because it was killing me and not the cancer. I was making tumors while I was on the chemo. But I'm not saying to everybody, cancer is not a group affair. It's a disease of one. Anybody that says to you, it's a group, you know, you're in this group and we're going to give you this cocktail, because that's what we give the group, all of a sudden your ears should perk up, and you should, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm going to get in so much trouble. But you should think. The doctors are really nice people. They wake up every morning and they want to save people, and they wake up every morning and they don't want to kill anybody. And they're doing very meaningful work, but I can't live by somebody telling me what to do. And bottom line, it's my responsibility. Me is my responsibility. And one of my problems in life has always been the fact that people would say, oh, Judy can manage. That's a really bad thing to happen to me, that I can manage. Because I don't want to manage, I want to be taken care of. I want it to all work. And when it doesn't work, I feel I have to take care of it. And I really don't want my husband or my family to feel they have the responsibility to make these decisions. Because bottom line, it's my decision, and I have to live with it or die with it, but it's okay, because I made it. There are any number of doctors who either hide when they see me or run down the hall towards me or away from me. It's okay. You know, do what's good for you, I tell the doctors. You didn't have a good day? Tough. Okay, so this talk is something not entirely different, but it came from going to weddings and bar mitzvahs where people say to me things that I'm sure they say. One thing they say is, considering you look very good. Now, if you look very good, what is the considering necessary for? Like, why do you have to say considering, for heaven's sakes? And when the 5th person came up to me and said, considering you look very good recently, I said to them, I guess dying agrees with me. My husband is not like me at all. And he said to me, can't you say anything nice? Do you have to be like this? I said, this is not nice what they just said. They should hear themselves. Sometimes I ask people who say the most stupid things to repeat it. I didn't hear you. Could you just repeat it again? These are not infrequent episodes in my life. A lot of people say very stupid things very often. So I say, do you mind repeating that? Because I didn't hear. And when they repeat it for the 3rd or 4th time, they finally hear it. And then they kind of walk away. Good. You got the point. And people come to me and talk to me because I am a psychologist. I am a neuropsychologist. I'm a lot of things because I have like this drive that I can't. My husband, we got married just before my 18th birthday. And he keeps waking up and asking, what happened to that 18-year-old girl I don't know. You must have put her someplace because I don't know where she is. And I say, I owe everything to you because I wouldn't have done any of my studies. I had just graduated high school. I did everything after I was married, everything after I had 4 kids. I got my PhD and my first grandson the same time. It was almost as much labor pains, but not quite. Anyway, so somebody came to me and said, and I try to collect stupid things people say because sometimes they're so outlandish you couldn't make it up. So somebody, she had a mastectomy, or double mastectomy, and somebody said to her, you know, it's really sad I heard about your mastectomy, but my girlfriend's dog had 10. And she called me and she said, is that possible? I said, sure, dogs have a lot of teeth, why shouldn't they have 10? I don't know, I never counted a dog's breasts. But she said, can you imagine somebody saying this? I can imagine anybody saying anything. And nothing about us, everything is open for conversation. Yesterday, standing at the elevator in the hospital, somebody who I know really 20, 25 years from the hospital, who's a very clever, bright woman, says to me, so how are you? How do you feel? So my father, alav hashalom, used to answer that by saying with 2 hands. So I said, my father, alav hashalom, used to say with 2 hands. No, how do you feel? Okay, Baruch Hashem. No, really, how do you feel? So I said, why in heaven's name should I tell you? Till the elevator comes. And you're going one place, I'm going another, why? Why should I tell you how I feel just because you ask? And I really feel that we should all listen to that. We're so busy trying to be polite that we don't think about ourselves. Like, why should I tell anybody? Or if I want to tell somebody how I feel and it's going to be useful, okay. And if I work hard in trying to look and I say I feel fine, good. Do I have to tell the truth? No. Why should I? And if I don't feel fine and if I tell them how I really feel and the elevator comes, does that make a difference to my health? No. Does it help that person? No. So what's the purpose? Just to be polite? Like, why? Anyway, that put me to thinking previously. One person saw me at a kiddush in a shul and said to me, you know, you're looking pretty good considering. Okay, that was down. Another person says, you're still holding up, huh? I said, funnily enough, I think you've aged. Again, my husband was not pleased with me. But really, what gives somebody the right to come into my Daled Amot and say something stupid? And then I was at a shiva, and the person said to me, the guy, whose wife had passed away, said, you know what somebody said to me? You'll forget her in 2 years. And you'll go on to the next thing. Now, we all know that at the shiva there's some sign that goes up that says vacancy for men. For women, there's no sign that goes up that says vacancy. They could stay unvacated forever. But for men, there's a sign that goes up outside and flashes, vacancy, vacancy. So by the end of the shiva, there's already 400 lists of shidduchim. But to say to him, in 2 years you'll forget her, and he said, we've been married over 50 years, why should I forget her in 2 years? I said, you know, Alzheimer's steps in, that's what they meant. So, you know, oh, Judy, you know, that's okay. So I decided to look, and what is it? Because I really believe with all my heart that people do not wake up in the morning and decide to say the stupidest things that they could say. One of my patients is, I've had him for a long time, he is a quadriplegic on a respirator. So nothing moves except his face, since he was run over, literally run over, by a car. And I have stupid things that people say. I keep a list of them, and he knew that. And he said, okay, I was someplace and somebody said, I'd like to shake your hand. Now, of course, his hands don't move. So then he said, and you know what I heard them say as they left me? He's a snob. What a snob. Huh? He's a snob because he didn't shake his hand. He can't move his hands. He can't move his legs. He can't move anything except his face. So, and that's just some of them. I have a patient who was born blind she was born without eyes and without a nose. And she said, I like interesting patients. I don't like, my mother doesn't understand me. Who cares? My wife doesn't understand me. Get another wife. It's not like what I do. So she was born without eyes and without a nose, and she said she went to a new physical therapist in the water, whatever, and the physical therapist said was throwing her ball, okay? And of course she really couldn't catch it well because she's blind. So she says, where is it? And the physical therapist said, over there. And the girl said to her, she's very smart and she's got her mouth on her, yes. And she said to her, you might not have noticed that I'm blind, but over there means nothing to me. 6 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever might be helpful. But over there? So, moving right along. So I decided to speak about this because the biggest place that people make bloopers, and I call it hoof and mouth disease, they stick their foot in their mouth, is when they visit the sick or when they go to be nichum avelim. So as a psychologist, and I call it killing the soul with kindness, because afterwards you have to say thank you very much for coming, or thank you for visiting me, and they've just hurt your feelings tremendously. And you have to entertain them when you're not feeling well. And you can't hang up on them because that's impolite. And. Well, I recently had surgery. That's one of the things I do. I had another open belly surgery. So if I count all the open belly surgeries in my life, I'm up to 8. Because I had 4 kids by cesarean. I had a appendectomy when I was 4. And then I had 3 open belly surgeries thanks to the cancer. So I told the doctor, the surgeon, I said, shouldn't I get some kind of a certificate? He said, one second, let me go to my computer and I'll type you up a certificate. I said, do you have other patients who've had this many open belly surgeries? He said, tell you the truth, not, but they're not really very proud of it and they're not here asking for a certificate. I said, okay, I'm different, whatever. So I tried to understand, and that's what we're going to try to do this evening. Okay, here we go. So I made this, I like PowerPoint because it keeps me from getting, I didn't invent traumatology, dealing with trauma, but I worked practically since I started Shari Tzedek in the emergency room for a run. It's called Eriyim Rav Nifgaim. Multiple people injuries, and in medical terms in English, it's MCEs, mass casualty events. So as I said, I like stuff that's different. If somebody just breaks their arm and ends up in the emergency room, it's really boring for me. Because, they feel bad and they feel like they're so dumb. How could I trip? Okay, you're right. It's pretty dumb. So I'm not the one you want to speak to about that. But if you saw 3 people blown to bits and you're really having a little difficulty dealing with it, I like that. Anyway, so you have to like what you do, otherwise you're not good at it. And you have to like what you do because it has to be interesting to you after the second person. And during the Intifada, I think in Shari Tzedek alone we got over 3,000 people and a lot of trauma victims. And I've spoken on it, blah, 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 but we're not here for that. So who are the visitees that we go visit and to whom we offer solace? Because we all go, we all have opportunities to go visit somebody or see sick people. And maybe we have to look at them, at the people who come to visit us, as the victims we fear, to see. We fear to be the victims. So we go to visit them and think if we visit enough, go to enough shivas, then we built up some sort of chisun, some sort of immunity to pain. No, but anyway, if that's what you do, some people love going to shivas. So there's a very, very smart, and I like him a lot because he agrees with what I think. His name is Bessel van der Kolk, and if you can download anything and any TEDs or videos or whatever, he has a very heavy Dutch accent. My mother's Dutch, and he's clever. And he says, victims are members of society whose problems represent a degree of suffering and rage and pain in a world that longs to forget. Most people don't want to know how we're feeling. And they go, how are you? Or they have a capital R. How are you? All of this. I'm every letter of the alphabet, including R. Thank you. So they don't really get my sense of humor. Okay, next. So what's the grab of doing the right thing? Why do we feel we have to go to a shiva? Why do people feel they have to go visit the ill? Yeah, sure, there's the issue of they take 1/20th away. 1/60th away. Now, if 60 people go visit me, will I be healthy? Nope. So okay, it makes them feel better. They do a mitzvah. I remember in a pigua, there was this Hasidic kid in his early 20s who was here, and he said he knew not to go and touch anything and not to go try to help after he heard the first noise, because they always set a second bomb. So he went after the second bomb, and the third bomb got him. And he had burns all over his face, his hands, this. And I'm with him since the emergency room, and then I'm visiting him afterwards. And I come into his room, and his face has blisters in this, and he's crying. And all I could see was the salt tears coming. I said, what happened? He said, my Rebbe was here, and he said to me, is the reason you survived is because you used up you had a lot of credit, and used it up. And he was crying because he had none left. I said, wait a minute, it's not my place to say to you that the Rebbe doesn't know what he's talking about. He said, oh, chas v'shalom, and all that stuff. And I said, yeah, well, he doesn't. Because what was it that you allowed him to do? I said, you allowed him to do Bikur Cholim by coming to visit you. So you have credit in the bank. And he has to thank you that you allowed him, not that you used up your stuff. So I make stuff up as I go along, because it is not one book I ever read, and I read lots of books. Okay. So we all go, and we definitely hear, and I'd like you to think about, maybe you all know off the top of your heads the stupid things that people have said to you. And do not be ashamed to think of them as the stupid things maybe smart people say, or the stupid things that stupid people say. But they're stupid. And if they hurt you, you're not wrong, and you don't have to be polite. You don't owe anybody to be polite. That's an abused woman has to say sorry for what she make-believe thing that her abusive husband is doing to her. Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't burn the dinner tonight. Just think of it. No, he's abusive and has nothing to do with anything that you did. So what's going on? Why do people respond this way, and what is trauma? Like, we use trauma a lot. Oh, I'm traumatized because my in-laws are coming. Hashem took care of them. No, B'li Ayin Hara, they're wonderful people. But you're traumatized, you use the word, you throw it around. Trauma is a threat to life and body that you either experienced yourself or was very close to you. Your in-laws coming, unless they come with hammers, are not really the same. Or you have a test on Tuesday is not a trauma. Yeah, you're going to fail. Okay, you didn't study. Like, okay, that would be traumatic for somebody, but maybe not. So traumatic stress is the emotional, cognitive, and behavioral experience who are exposed to and witness at any distance, because all the kids who saw the rocket, this is between, I like to say it's the chemo that makes for my word finding and memory problems, because old age is not quite as sexy. So when the Apollo or whatever, the Challenger blew up, all the kids who were watching it in every school, because there was a teacher gone up with it, showed signs of trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder that they had to then deal with. Gee, trauma exists at a distance. And it's helpful. We try to watch these things to inoculate ourselves when we watch the news 48 hours a minute. But maybe we're in a loop that we have to be able to turn off the TV because it's the same thing again and again and again. And it isn't helpful to us. It doesn't inoculate us. In fact, last week, given the situation all over the country, I ran a group. I didn't run it. I gave the neuropsychology of trauma, and then I did it together. I hired an organization called Caliber 3, and they sent us a lovely guy who taught us Krav Maga. That's playing dirty in Israel, not judo. Judo's with rules, karate's with rules. You bow, do this. You bow and you wear like all these nice little clothes, you're dead. You fight dirty and you win. Like, this is what we learned here, and not like in Japan. We are Japanese. So Krav Maga is what they use in the army, and Krav Maga is what they export to other countries. So the ages of the people who attended this, and they were religious, and the guy was very nice. He said, listen, if you don't want to hit me, I have a long glove that I'll put on so you don't have to feel you touch me, because some of them were Haredi and some of them were not Haredi. And he was very, very good. And the youngest was 1 year old, because I said it was for families. And that it's more important to bring your 1 year old than to get a bit not come because you don't have a babysitter. If you feel like you're in a threatening situation, why shouldn't you learn techniques? One, to make you feel more empowered, and two, to make you feel like you have a plan. To be helpless, even in the face of cancer, is to feel you don't have a plan. I'm just going to sit there, you give me what you want, you mess up, I get blood poisoning, or I get so anemic that I can't continue the chemo, then that's what happens. No, then you fight, then you argue, then you do whatever you have to do, you keep track of it. Now, not everybody can do this, and not everybody wants to do it. And I think you're also allowed to say, Ad kan hakofa bet, but I'm not your Rav. And you can say, you know, this is as much suffering as I can do, and I'm going to sit the next dance out. And whatever Hashem wants, and whatever will happen. But some people, that takes a lot of guts too. Nothing doesn't take guts in this entire trip of life. From the minute you're born. Why do you think you're crying the minute you're born? Oh my God, what do I have to do now? Okay, so this is very important. Now, what I think everybody should know in their head is this pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy. I don't know, this is like Psych 101, or if you just learn it. It's physiological. We talk a lot today, mind, body, and soul. Very nice. But if you can't breathe, and you can't digest food, and you can't make, you say, you know, Asher Yatzar, you're dead in less than an hour. If the parts of you that excrete what's in you don't work, then that stuff counts. So breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, and all sorts of things. That's basic. And if you don't have that, the rest of the stuff doesn't count. The next thing is safety. I want to say that at this Krav Maga thing, so my mother came, she's Belia in Haran 92, and from her walker, she was doing some exercise, because she was very afraid also, as was her foreign worker, who also doesn't speak Hebrew. And the idea that this is all going on, and they're powerless, was worse. He said, one of the things he said that, you don't walk around with your head down, you walk around standing up straight. Because when your head is down, you can't see what's coming at you. Gee, that was a good idea. And the second thing is when you protect yourself, you don't protect yourself, we're going to all get our arms broken if we go like this. Who's so strong? He says, look at your watch. That protects you. So everybody can look at their watch. Everybody look at your watch. Right, there you go. That's the first level of defense in Krav Maga. Okay, but I think it's really worth it if you have, for everybody, for this organization, for every shul, to run it so that the people will feel more powerful, less powerless. Okay, anyway, so my mother did her thing, and the 1-year-old, what she could do is count 1, 2, 3, and everybody's doing 1, 2, 3, and all of a sudden I hear this little voice going, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going, oh my goodness, you got it, the beginning of Krav Maga. But if her mother felt comfortable or competent, she was going to have a better life. And that's with all of us with the illness, is if we feel like we are competent and not totally incompetent and not lemmings following what somebody's telling us to do, but we're taking some control, that's what we should do, and that'll help us. Now, so there's safety, love and belonging, esteem, how other people hold us in esteem, and self-actualization, becoming who you want it to be. But unless you can breathe and you're not sick and you're functioning basically, you don't get to the other stages. Okay. Oops, where does the next one come from? 1 second. Now, I don't know how much work you guys have done on trauma. I have 5 minutes. So I'm going to tell you what I did. I sent to the powers that be, and she's my man, Karen, a doctor. I sent her this PowerPoint in a handout fashion so that anybody who would like the PowerPoint can be in touch with the organization or with Karen, who I'm sure does more things during the day than just answers my emails. I'm getting to something very interesting, and I just wanted to show it to you. This is our brain, and this is inside our brain. Now, the one thing that we all need to know about trauma is this area of the brain, as you get to the outside of the brain, is the area of talking, of speech. If somebody, chas v'shalom, has a stroke and can't speak, so the temporal lobe, the outside of the brain, on the left side or the right side, was affected by the stroke. But the inside of the brain is what's really important for trauma, and that's where we feel emotions. That's where emotions are. And what happens in trauma is it's not connected to the language area. So we have something called speechless fear. And it attacks us viscerally, it attacks us in our nefesh. And in order to get us to talk, sometimes talking is helpful, and sometimes it's not. What we need is to feel that there's somebody else there. We're not alone, that there's another person, there's another body, we can feel ourselves. And that is really important. Again, this is the area where language is. This is the outside of language, and this part is like the speaking, and this is understanding language, and this is the inside. And though it's geographically close, it isn't connected. So when people, I think I went the wrong way. Okay, back again. No, wrong way. Hold on. Boom, 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 boom. So what I think, and the purpose of this talk, is that I really, really, really feel that it's very, very important that we understand how we feel when we visit somebody who's ill, when we visit somebody who's dying, when we visit somebody who's mourning. We know how we feel to prepare ourselves for the visit so we don't put our fears in a stupid conversation like considering you looking good, which is the fear that maybe most people have, certainly all the people who say that to me, that they won't look good when they're ill. Or how much energy does it take to get dressed and put on makeup when you feel so bad? When I have a migraine, I can't do anything. Not me, I don't have migraines, but I had cancer, huh? I beat you. Okay. I called up a friend of mine, I sent her a text message. She just had a really bad heart attack. And the most undiagnosed things for women are heart attacks, because you're not supposed to get them if you're a woman. Every man goes in and they don't feel so well. They're different symptoms. Her jaw hurt her, she was achy. These are standard symptoms for women getting heart attacks. Men, their left side, an elephant sat on me. They ask you all those questions. Does an elephant sit on you? No, I'm a woman, stupid. My jaw hurts me, but they didn't know the symptoms in the emergency room. Anyway, so she's out, she had her surgery, blah, blah, blah. And I sent her a text message. I said, I still beat you. I'm sicker than you are. So she says, well, let's have breakfast and we'll talk about it. So that's what got her out, because she wasn't going out. You'll see if you ask for the slide, the difference between somebody who feels trauma and somebody who's mourning is very, very slight. Somebody who's in trauma feels socially isolated, and it's very hard for them to reintegrate into society, because society is essentially healthy, or even if it's not healthy, they're denying anybody who's not healthy being part of their society because they're not able to cope with it for the most part. I don't have to cure them. I have to, and I don't really even have to understand them, but I want you to take from now, from this talk, that you have the power over yourself. If you want to go to a shiva, or you have to go to a shiva, practice in the mirror what you're going to say. So stuff doesn't come out of your mouth that may be painful for you to discuss or painful for the person to hear. That's not the purpose. We learn from Eov, from Job, that the best thing to do in a shiva is not talk. You're there. That's my point from before, the slide of the brain. If you're there, if your body is there, and if you're there for somebody, that's what they know. They don't have to entertain you, and you don't have to talk. And the first 3 days of Shiva, you're not supposed to draw them out and speak to them at all. Only the last 4 days of Shiva, if the person's not speaking at all, you're supposed to draw them out and speak to them. There's no halacha in Shiva. It's only minhagim, strong minhagim, weak minhagim, but it's not halacha. Of course, you should ask your rabbis, and that's what they're going to tell you too, because that's what it is. Okay, never mind. So if somebody has lack of patience, as I now do for the stupid things people say, like the woman at the elevator, I really don't. Do I have patience to have to be nice to her on top of everything else? Why? Why? And do we have ADD or ADHD? Yeah. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on internally at the same time as what's happening externally in life. And so maybe we do have attention problems. We should. It's very hard to control responses. Yes, we should better people, blah, 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 but doesn't always mean, and we don't have to feel badly if we responded to something that, in a nice way, I said is stupid. So, the person who visits and says things, and as I said before, should practice so that they are more in control. What I have a slide here, and it's there, it is defense mechanisms that we learn in psychology 101 or 102 or something. There's a whole lot. I like to think, though my children and children-in-law and grandchildren may disagree with me, that my use of humor is a mature response to my defense mechanism. I don't know that my doctors agree with me. The nurses don't generally agree with me, but hey, it's my life. Okay, I think we're at the end. And don't forget, victims are members of society whose problems represent a world of suffering, rage, and pain in a world that doesn't want to know about it. So don't be mad at them for not wanting to know about you when they say something. And there's a whole area of science today called epigenetics. It's like the latest thing since apple pie, or there's studies that show that you can pass down trauma like DNA to your children and grandchildren. It exists. It's not like just your thing. So talk about it. Don't not talk about it, because it's in them. Your children and grandchildren and husbands and people not afflicted want to be a part of your life in the way that they can. And they feel your pain, and you're hiding it causes them more pain because they're feeling it and they're responding to it. So with that, I want to say we should all have peace and quiet. And may this year be a Gemar Tov for all of us. It should have a good and happy ending. And everybody, thank you for caring and for each other, and also tefillot. Thank you.
We have time for just a couple of questions. If anybody has a question for Judy? Yes.
I'm in the supermarket and I see somebody, she had to bury her child, tragically. I'm in the supermarket and I see her. Do I raise it, discuss it, mention it, and then she's going to burst it? I mean, the poor woman's trying to do some shopping in the supermarket.
What is she? And from what happened to the child? She lost a child. Not in aisle number 4.
She buried a child.
Right. No, I know.
It's not a shiver situation.
I was really sorry to hear about it. I don't want to cause you more pain by talking about it, but I just want you to know that I think about you.
Right.
If you know her, it's true. It's not like you ignored her.
Right.
And if she gives you nonverbal signs like "get away from me," I don't want to talk about it, you'll understand them, unless you're Asperger, autistic, and then you won't.
One more question, anybody? You covered it all.
Okay. I want to apologize for the next speaker because this is very well past my bedtime. Being as I sleep like 3 or 4 hours a night, not attached to each other, so I really go to bed early. So I thank you very much for coming, and I love Devora, and I think it's a wonderful organization, and Zehu, so thank you.
Thank you. But another lesson that I've gotten, maybe it's related to the open heart, is the open place of forgiveness and acceptance. And I think that when we think about the journey, and even what some of the things that Judy said about the challenges of doing the right thing, whether it's for ourselves or for the people we love and care for, being able to forgive is so important. And I think a lot of us are really hard on ourselves. And Judy's sarcastic way of criticizing, I think, is the opening for forgiveness. Because when we do something and we realize we did it wrong, it's okay to say, we're not perfect. And I want to thank you for that, because it's a very powerful lesson that I learned from you.